Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, watching the stars through the main view screen. It was another quiet day in deep space, 3 months into their exploration mission beyond the edge of human territory. The crew had been mapping new star systems and looking for signs of life, but so far, they had found nothing except empty planets and asteroid fields. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Ben Parker from his station at the front of the bridge. His voice carried a note of excitement that made everyone look up from their work. Jake walked over to look at the sensor display. A bright dot was moving across the screen, but it wasn't moving like any asteroid or comet he had ever seen. "What do you think it is?" "It's too big to be a ship from Earth," Ben replied, adjusting the controls. "To get a clearer reading, the size matches our largest vessels, but the energy signature is completely different. I've never seen anything like it." The bridge fell silent as the crew realized what this might mean. For over 200 years, humans had been exploring space and finding nothing but empty worlds. They had begun to wonder if they were alone in the universe. It seemed like they might finally have their answer. "Red alert," Jake ordered. "All hands to battle stations. Communications, try to establish contact with that vessel." The red warning lights began flashing throughout the ship as the crew prepared for whatever was about to happen. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter appeared on the main screen from the engine room, her face serious but calm. "Captain, all systems are ready. Engines are at full power and weapons are online," she reported. Jake nodded. "Good work, Lisa. Keep us ready for anything." On the view screen, the unknown vessel was getting closer. They could see that it was unlike anything humans had ever built. The ship was long and elegant, made of what looked like crystal or glass that glowed with a soft blue light. Strange patterns covered its surface, and it moved through space without any visible engines or exhaust. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission," said Communications Officer Danny Walsh. "It's not in any human language, but the computer is trying to translate it." "Put it through," Jake ordered. The speakers crackled to life, and a strange voice filled the bridge. The words were alien, but somehow the translation system was making sense of them. "Unknown vessel, you will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. You are now prisoners of the Vorthok Empire. Resistance will result in your destruction." Jake felt his heart racing. This was it, humanity's first contact with an alien species, and they were being threatened. He looked around at his crew and saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. "Danny, open a channel," Jake said. "Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel. Use Horizon. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. We mean you no harm." The alien voice responded immediately. "You will surrender now. The Vorthok do not negotiate with primitive species." On the alien ship, Commander Zeph9 stood in the center of his command chamber, studying the strange vessel before him. The ship was crude compared to Vorthok technology, made of simple metal instead of living crystal. But something about it made him curious. "Sir, their ship design is very basic, but they seem to have faster-than-light travel," reported his science officer. "Interesting," Zeph9 mused. "Most species we encounter are still limited to their home systems when we first meet them. These humans must be more advanced than they appear." Back on the horizon, Jake was trying to think of a way out of this situation. His ship was armed, but he had no idea what weapons the alien vessel might have. Starting a fight could doom his crew and end humanity's first contact with violence. "Captain, I'm trying to send a message back to Earth Command," Danny said. "But the alien ship is jamming our long-range communications." Lisa Carter's voice came through the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup in their vessel. I think they're charging weapons." Jake made his decision. "All hands prepare for evasive action. Lisa, give me everything the engines have." But as Lisa worked frantically at her console, she accidentally triggered the ship's emergency beacon. The beacon was designed to send out a distress signal that could reach any human vessel within 50 light-years. It was meant to be used only in the most desperate situations. "Captain, I'm sorry. I hit the wrong control," Lisa said over the intercom. "The emergency beacon is active. Can you shut it off?" Jake asked. not without shutting down the entire communications system. The signal is already broadcasting. On the alien ship, Zeph-9 watched in confusion as the human vessel began transmitting a powerful signal in all directions. "What are they doing?" "It appears to be some kind of communication signal, Commander," his science officer replied. "Very powerful, reaching far beyond this system. Are they calling for help?" Zeph-9 asked. "That would be logical, but who?" Would answer, "We are far from any civilized system." Zeph-9 had conquered many worlds for the Vorthok Empire. Usually, when a primitive species encountered his ship, they either tried to flee or surrendered immediately. He had never seen a species that would call for help when facing certain defeat. On the horizon, Jake was still trying to find a peaceful solution. "Danny, try to explain to them that we're explorers, not warriors. Tell them we just want to learn about other species." Danny worked at his console, sending messages to the alien ship. The response came back quickly. "The Vorthok do not believe. Your words, your species, is known throughout the galaxy as dangerous and aggressive. You will surrender or be destroyed." "Known throughout the galaxy?" Jake repeated. "How can we be known? This is our first contact with aliens." Before anyone could answer, Ben Parker called out from his station. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position. They're coming from the direction of human space." Jake looked at the tactical display in amazement. Dozens of ships were racing toward their location, all flying at maximum speed. There were exploration vessels like the Horizon, cargo ships, even a few military patrol craft that had been in the area. "How many ships?" Jake asked. "At least 30, Captain, and more are coming. Looks like every human vessel within range is heading this way." On the alien ship, Zeph-9 stared at his sensors in disbelief. "This is impossible. Where are all these ships coming from, Commander?" "It appears that the human distress signal was received by their entire fleet," his science officer reported. "They are all converging on this location." "But why?" Zeph-9 asked. "These humans don't even know each other. Why would they risk their lives to help strangers?" This was completely outside Zeph-9's experience. In the Vorthok Empire, each ship looked out for itself. The idea of rushing to help unknown vessels was foreign to him. "Sir, some of these approaching ships are civilian vessels. They have no weapons, yet they're flying directly toward a combat zone," his tactical officer reported. DHPH-9 felt a chill run through him. What kind of species would send unarmed ships into battle? Either these humans were incredibly brave, or incredibly stupid. Either way, they were definitely not acting like any species he had ever encountered. As the human fleet drew closer, Zeph-9 realized he might have made a serious mistake. These humans were not behaving like the primitive species he usually encountered. They were acting like something else entirely, something that might be far more dangerous than he had imagined. Admiral Karen Brooks sat in her command chair aboard the UES Liberty, watching as more human ships appeared on her sensors. The emergency beacon from the Horizon had reached her battle group just as they finished their patrol near the outer colonies. Without hesitation, she had ordered all ships to maximum speed toward the distress signal. "Ma'am, we now have 47 human vessels converging on the Horizon's position," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Scott. "The fleet includes everything from military cruisers to civilian cargo haulers." Karen nodded grimly. She had served in the Earth Defense Force for 20 years, but this was the first time she had ever responded to a contact with alien life. The thought that Captain Morrison and his crew might be in danger made her push the engines even harder. "How long until we reach them?" she asked. 18 minutes at current speed, Admiral," replied her navigation officer. "Signal all ships. Tell them to maintain formation, but be ready for anything. We don't know what we're dealing with." On the horizon, Captain Jake Morrison watched the approaching fleet with mixed feelings. He was grateful for the help, but worried about what might happen when so many ships arrived at once. The alien vessel was still holding position nearby, neither attacking nor leaving. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from Admiral Brooks," Danny Walsh announced from his communications station. "Put her through," Jake ordered. Admiral Brooks' stern face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Morrison, What's your status? We're unharmed, Admiral, but we have a situation. We've made contact with an alien species called the Vorthok. They claim we're their prisoners, but they haven't fired on us yet. Understood. My fleet will be there in 15 minutes. Can you hold out until then? Yes, ma'am. But Admiral, I should warn you. This alien commander seems to think humans are already known throughout the galaxy as a dangerous species. I don't understand how that's possible. Karen frowned. We'll figure that out later. Right now, just keep your people safe. On the Vorthok ship, Commander Zeph-9 paced around his command chamber, trying to understand what he was witnessing. The human fleet was now only minutes away, and still more ships were arriving from deeper in human space. Commander, we are detecting communication signals between the approaching vessels, his communications officer reported. They are coordinating their approach. What kind of coordination? Zeph-9 asked. The military vessels are forming a defensive perimeter around the civilian ships. The civilian ships are moving to support positions. It appears they are working together despite coming from different locations. Zeph-9 found this deeply troubling. Most species in the galaxy had evolved beyond the need for such cooperation. Individual ships and crews looked out for themselves. The idea of civilian vessels rushing into danger to help strangers was almost incomprehensible to him. Sir, should we withdraw? Asked his tactical officer. We are now outnumbered 47-1. No, Zeph-9 replied. I need to understand what we're dealing with. These humans are not acting like any species I've encountered before. The first human ships began dropping out of faster-than-light travel near the horizon. Admiral Brooks' battle group arrived in perfect formation, immediately taking defensive positions around the exploration vessel. The civilian ships hung back, but remained within support range. Open a channel to the alien vessel, Admiral Brooks ordered. Channel open, Admiral, her communications officer replied. This is Admiral Karen Brooks of the Earth Defense Force. You are surrounded by the human fleet. Release the U.S. horizon immediately. The response came quickly. I am Commander Zeph-9 of the Vorthok Empire. We have made no hostile actions against your vessel. We are merely ... studying your species. Studying us? Karen asked. For what purpose? There was a long pause before the alien commander responded. We have been monitoring your radio transmissions. For many years, your species has a reputation throughout the galaxy as extremely aggressive and dangerous. We wish to observe you directly. On the horizon, Danny Walsh had been working to improve the translation system. Captain, I think I can establish better communication with the alien ship. The computer is learning their language patterns. Do it, Jake ordered. A few minutes later, Danny had established a clearer communication link. Captain, I'm getting much better translations now. I think we can have a real conversation with them. Jake looked at Admiral Brooks on his screen. Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to try talking to their commander directly. Granted. But keep this channel open so I can monitor the conversation. Jake took a deep breath and activated the communication system. Commander Zeph-9, this is Captain Morrison. I would like to speak with you about this misunderstanding. The alien's voice came through much clearer now. There is no misunderstanding, Captain Morrison. Your species is known throughout the galaxy for its violent nature and territorial behavior. I don't understand, Jake replied. This is our first contact with alien life. How can we be known throughout the galaxy? Your radio transmissions have been reaching other star systems for decades. We have monitored your news broadcasts, your entertainment programs, and your historical records. The evidence of your aggressive nature is overwhelming. Dr. Amy Foster, the Horizon science officer, had been listening to the conversation from her station. She suddenly understood what might be happening. Captain, may I speak? Jake nodded. Go ahead, Doctor. Commander Zeph-9, I am Dr. Amy Foster, a xenobiologist. I think there may be a serious misunderstanding about human nature. The radio signals you've been monitoring may not show the complete picture of our species. Explain, the alien commander said. Much of our entertainment programming shows conflict and violence because these make for interesting stories. But they are fiction, not reality. Our news reports focus on problems because that is what news does. It doesn't show the billions of humans who live peaceful lives every day. There was a long silence before Zeph-9 responded. You claim your violent broadcasts are not representative of your species. That's correct. Most humans live quiet, peaceful lives. We work, we raise families, we help our neighbors. The violence you see in our media is not normal for us. Then explain this, Zeph9 said. When your ship sent out a distress signal, dozens of vessels immediately responded. Many of them are civilian ships with no weapons. Why would they risk their lives for strangers? Dr. Foster smiled. Because that's what humans do. We help each other. When someone is in trouble, we come to help, even if we don't know them personally. This is impossible, Zeph9 replied. No civilized species behaves this way. Such cooperation would have been eliminated by evolution long ago. Not eliminated, Dr. Foster corrected. Enhanced. Humans who helped others survived better than those who didn't. Our ability to work together is one of our greatest strengths. Admiral Brooks had been listening to the conversation with growing interest. Commander Zeph9, if your people have been monitoring our transmissions, then you must have seen examples of human cooperation. Our rescue services, our medical aid to other countries, our space exploration programs were different. Nations worked together. We interpreted those as signs of territorial expansion and resource acquisition, Zeph9 admitted. Most species we know would only cooperate for personal gain. Not humans, Admiral Brooks said. We cooperate because it's the right thing to do. On the Vorthok ship, Zeph9 was beginning to realize that his people might have seriously misunderstood. This species, if what you say is true, then why do your historical records show so much warfare and conflict? Because we're still learning, Jake answered. Humans haven't always been peaceful. We've made mistakes, fought wars, hurt each other, but we've been getting better. We're trying to become a better species. You admit to being violent in the past? Zeph9 asked. Yes, but that's not who we are now. We learned from our mistakes. We chose to be better. Zeph9 felt a chill run through him. Species that could learn from its mistakes, that could choose to change its nature, that would risk everything to help strangers. This was far more dangerous than simple aggression. Commander, his science officer whispered, if they can truly cooperate on this scale, their potential for growth is unlimited. Zeph9 nodded slowly. These humans were not what he had expected. They were something far more complex and potentially far more powerful than a simple aggressive species. Captain Morrison, he said finally, I believe we need to talk more about your species. And I believe my superiors need to know what we have discovered here. 3 days after the first contact with the Vorthok Empire, the news had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. In the great crystal halls of the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were being held around the clock. Representatives from hundreds of species had gathered to discuss what they all believed was the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Ambassador Kethprim of the Zenthari Republic stood before the assembled council, his tall, thin frame casting long shadows in the dim light. His people had evolved on a low-gravity world. Like most species in the galaxy, they were physically fragile compared to humans. But they were also one of the oldest civilizations in the council, and their words carried great weight. Beings, Keth, Prime began, his voice carrying the musical tones of his species. We face a crisis unlike any in our recorded history. The humans have finally expanded beyond their home system, and all our fears about their nature appear to be justified. The council chamber filled with nervous whispers and the various sounds that different species made when they were afraid. The Malthorn delegation clicked their claws against their seats, while the Yithrin representatives fluttered their wing-like appendages in distress. The evidence is overwhelming, Kethprim continued. Commander Zeph9 of the Vorthok Empire has confirmed that when threatened, humans immediately call for massive reinforcements. Dozens of their vessels responded to a single distress signal, including civilian ships willing to fly into combat zones. Ambassador Shift 7 of the Malthorn Confederacy rose from his seat. His species looked somewhat like large insects, with multiple arms and compound eyes. This behavior is completely alien to civilized species. No rational being would risk their life for strangers. Exactly, Keith Prime agreed. And this is only the beginning. Our monitoring stations have detected human expansion fleets heading toward multiple star systems. They are spreading across the galaxy with frightening speed. What the Council didn't know was that these expansion fleets were actually exploration. Groups like Captain Morrison's, sent out to study new worlds and look for signs of life, but two species that had grown fearful of human aggression. Any human ship in space looked like a threat. Meanwhile, in a distant star system, Captain Pete Rodriguez of the UES Discovery was about to make the situation much worse. His ship was on a routine patrol mission when they received a distress signal from an unknown vessel. "Captain, we're picking up what sounds like a mayday signal," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "It's coming from a ship about 2 million kilometers away." Pete looked at the tactical display. "Can you identify the vessel?" "It appears to be a Malthorn trading ship, sir. But there are 3 other vessels nearby that don't match any known configurations." Chief Tactical Officer Helen Carter studied her sensors. "Captain, those unknown ships are firing on the trading vessel. It looks like a pirate attack." Pete didn't hesitate. "All hands to battle stations." "Helen, prepare weapons. We're going to help them." "Sir, we don't know anything about these species," Sarah warned. "Maybe we should contact Earth Command first." "People are dying right now," Pete replied. "We can't wait for orders." Set course for the trading ship, maximum speed. The UES Discovery raced toward the battle, its weapon systems charging. The 3 pirate vessels were small and fast, but they were no match for the human ship's advanced technology and superior firepower. More importantly, they had never faced a species that would willingly enter an uneven fight to help strangers. "Captain, we're in weapons range," Helen reported. "Target the lead pirate vessel. Fire." The Discovery's plasma cannons lit up space as they struck the first pirate ship. The vessel exploded in a brilliant flash, its crew having no time to react to the human ship's sudden appearance. "Second target locked," Helen announced. "Fire." The second pirate ship tried to flee, but the Discovery's weapons were too fast. It, too, exploded in a ball of fire and debris. The third pirate vessel immediately stopped its attack on the trading ship and tried to escape. But Captain Rodriguez was not about to let armed criminals go free to attack other innocent ships. "Pursue and destroy," he ordered. The Discovery chased down the final pirate ship and eliminated it before it could escape. The entire battle had lasted less than 5 minutes. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the trading vessel," Sarah reported. "Put it through." The main screen showed the bridge of the Malthorn ship. Captain Schiff 7 stood in the center, his compound eyes wide with disbelief. "Human vessel. This is Captain Schiff 7 of the trading ship Gentle Prophet. We cannot believe what you have just done. We're glad we could help," Pete replied. "Are your crew injured? Do you need medical assistance?" You saved us," Schiff 7 stammered. "You attacked 3 ships to save strangers. This is impossible behavior." "Not impossible," Pete said with a smile. "Just human. We help people when they're in trouble. But why? What do you gain from this?" Pete looked confused. "Gain? We don't gain anything. We just couldn't stand by and watch innocent people get hurt." On the Malthorn ship, Schiff 7 felt a chill run through his body. The humans had attacked superior numbers without hesitation, destroyed 3 ships without mercy, and now they claimed they did it for no personal benefit. This was the most terrifying thing he had ever witnessed. "We must report this to our government," Schiff 7 said. "Thank you for your assistance." "No problem," Pete replied. "Stay safe out there." As the Discovery resumed its patrol, Captain Rodriguez had no idea that he had just made humanity's reputation even worse. To him, they had simply done the right thing. The galaxy they had just proven that humans would seek out and destroy. Anyone they considered a threat. Within hours, Captain Schiff 7's report reached the Malthorn government. The news that a human ship had actively hunted down and destroyed pirate vessels spread like wildfire through the galactic communication networks. Back on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Keth Prime called another emergency session of the Galactic Council. "Fellow beings, the situation has become even more dire. We have confirmed reports that human vessels are now actively seeking out and destroying ships throughout the galaxy. The council chamber erupted in panic. Representatives from dozens of species spoke at once, their voices rising in fear and confusion. "They're not just defending themselves," Kethprim continued. "They're hunting." A single human ship destroyed. 3 vessels in the Outer Rim then pursued and eliminated the survivors. This level of aggression is unprecedented. Ambassador Yith-2 of the Consensus Collective, a young female from a peaceful species, raised her hand. "Perhaps we should try to communicate with them. Maybe there's an explanation for their actions." "Communication?" Kethprime replied. "A species that destroys ships without provocation? You must assume they are preparing for conquest." "But why would they want to conquer us?" Yith-2 asked. "We have nothing they need." "Because that's what aggressive species do," Kethprime explained. "They expand, they conquer, they dominate. It's in their nature." What the council didn't understand was that humans had no interest in conquering anyone. They were simply responding to their instincts to help and protect others. But to species that had evolved past physical conflict, human protective behavior looked like barely controlled aggression. "We must prepare for war," declared Ambassador Vexanine of the Courthawk Union. "If the humans are as dangerous as their actions suggest, we need to be ready to defend ourselves." "War," Yith-2 said in horror. "We haven't had a war in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Surely we can find a peaceful solution." "There is no peaceful solution with a species like this," Kethprim replied grimly. "We must assume the worst and prepare accordingly." As the council continued its debate, nobody noticed that they were making the same mistake that had started this whole crisis. They were interpreting human actions through the lens of their own peaceful nature, unable to understand that humans could be both protective and peaceful at the same time. The galaxy was preparing for a war that humanity didn't even know was coming, all because they had misunderstood the most basic aspect of human nature, the drive to help others, even strangers, even at personal cost, and somewhere in space. More human ships continued their explorations, completely unaware that every act of kindness and protection was being seen as an act of aggression by the very people they were trying to help. Dr. Amy Foster stood nervously in the shuttle bay of the UES Discovery, checking her equipment one last time. 3 weeks had passed since the first contact with the Vorthok Empire, and now she was about to make history as the first human to visit the center of galactic civilization. The invitation to speak at the Galactic Council had been unexpected, but she hoped it would help clear up the growing misunderstandings about humanity. "Are you ready for this, Doctor?" asked Professor Carl Johnson, the elderly historian who had volunteered to join the cultural exchange mission. His white beard and kind eyes made him look like a grandfather. But his mind was sharp, and he knew more about human history than almost anyone alive. "As ready as I can be," Amy replied, adjusting her simple blue dress. She had chosen to wear normal Earth clothing instead of a formal uniform, hoping to appear non-threatening to the alien delegates. Dr. Nancy Phillips, the mission's anthropologist, looked up from her tablet where she was reviewing her notes. "Studied every piece of information we have about galactic civilizations. Most of them seem to be peaceful species that haven't had wars for hundreds of years. They probably can't understand why humans would fight at all." Security Chief Tony Martinez finished checking his sidearm and looked at the 3 scientists. "Remember, I'm only here for protection. Try to keep me in the background unless you need me to demonstrate something." Tony was a large man, even by human standards. Years of military training had given him impressive strength and reflexes, but he was also gentle and intelligent. He had been chosen for the mission because he could show the aliens what human physical capabilities were like without being intimidating. The shuttle landed on Nexus Prime in a special docking bay designed for diplomatic missions. As they stepped out, Amy was amazed by what she saw. The entire space station was made of what looked like living crystal, with lights that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. The aliens who greeted them were unlike anything she had ever imagined. Ambassador Keith Prim approached them slowly, his tall, thin frame moving with graceful steps. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, humans. I am Ambassador Keth Prime of the Zenthari Republic. We are interested to meet you." Amy could hear the fear in his voice, even through the translation device. "Thank you for inviting us, Ambassador. We're honored to be here. Please follow me, Keth Prim said. The council is eager to understand your species better. As they walked through the crystal corridors, Amy noticed that other aliens quickly moved out of their way. Some watched them with obvious curiosity, while others seemed frightened. She began to realize that humanity's reputation was even worse than she had thought. The council chamber was enormous, with hundreds of seats arranged. In a circle around a central speaking area, representatives from dozens of species filled the seats, and Amy could feel their eyes watching her every move. The variety of alien life was incredible, from insect-like beings to creatures that looked like living plants. Honored council members, Keth Prim announced, I present Dr. Amy Foster, Professor Carl Johnson, and Dr. Nancy Phillips of the human species. They have come to explain their people's nature to us. Amy stepped forward, her heart pounding. Thank you for this opportunity. We hope to clear up some misunderstandings about humanity. A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. Amy activated her presentation device and began showing images from Earth. This is our home planet, she said, displaying a beautiful view of Earth from space. It's a world of great diversity, with billions of humans living together in relative peace. Relative peace? Interrupted Ambassador Shift 7 of the Malthorn Confederacy. We have monitored your news broadcasts. They show constant conflict and violence. It's because news focuses on problems, Professor Johnson explained. For every act of violence reported, there are millions of acts of kindness that go unnoticed. Most humans live quiet, peaceful lives. And explain this, Keth Prim said, activating his own display. It showed footage from human movies depicting battles and explosions. Your entertainment shows constant warfare. Why would a peaceful species create such content? Dr. Phillips stood up, because humans enjoy stories about overcoming challenges. Don't actually want to fight. We just find it interesting to watch fictional characters solve problems through conflict. Fictional, asked Ambassador Vexnine of the Korthak Union. You mean these battles are not real? That's correct, Amy said. They're stories like the myths and legends that most species create. They help us explore ideas about right and wrong, about protecting others and fighting for what we believe in. The confusion in the chamber was obvious. Many of the alien species had evolved past the need for such stories, so they couldn't understand why humans would be interested in fictional conflict. But you do fight real wars, Keth Prim pointed out. Your historical records show centuries of conflict between human groups. Professor Johnson nodded sadly. Yes, we have fought wars. But we've learned from those mistakes. We've seen the cost of violence, and we've chosen to find better ways to solve our problems. You've chosen, asked Yith2, the young representative from the Consensus Collective. You mean you can control your aggressive instincts? We're not naturally aggressive, Amy explained. We're naturally protective. When we see someone in danger, we want to help them. When we see someone being hurt, we want to stop it. Sometimes that means fighting, but only to protect innocent people, Choas demanded Ambassador Vexnine. Demonstrate this protective instinct. Amy looked uncertain. I'm not sure what you mean, your security chief, Vexnine said, pointing at Tony Martinez. Show us what human physical capabilities are like. Tony stepped forward reluctantly. I'd be happy to demonstrate, but I don't want to frighten anyone. We need to understand what we're dealing with, Keth Prim said. Please proceed. Tony looked around the chamber and saw a heavy crystal table near the wall. He walked over to it and, with what looked like minimal effort, lifted it above his head. The aliens gasped in shock as they realized the table weighed several hundred pounds. This is normal strength for a human male, Tony explained, gently setting the table down. We evolved on a high-gravity world, so we're naturally stronger than most species. And your reflexes? Asked Ambassador XIPH-7. Tony nodded to Dr. Phillips, who threw a small object across the chamber. Tony caught it icily, then threw it back to her with perfect accuracy. The entire exchange took less than 2 seconds. The chamber erupted in frightened whispers. To the aliens, who had evolved on low-gravity worlds and had slow reflexes, Tony's demonstration was terrifying. You see, Keth Prim said, they are physically superior to us in every way. They could dominate us easily. but we don't want to dominate anyone, Amy protested. We want to help people, to protect them from harm. Why? Asked Yith-Tu. What do you gain from protecting strangers? Amy paused, trying to find the right words. We don't gain anything material. We do it because it's right. Because we can't stand to see others suffer when we have the power to help. Can you help others at personal cost? Yith-Tu asked. Yes, Amy replied. If someone is in trouble, we help them. Even if it's dangerous. Even if we don't know them. Even if we get nothing in return. This is impossible, Vex9 declared. No species would evolve such behavior. It provides no survival advantage.
Actually?
It does, Professor Johnson said. Humans who helped others were more likely to receive help when they needed it. Communities that worked together survived better than those that didn't. Our protective instincts made us stronger as a species. The chamber fell silent as the aliens tried to process this information. Finally, Yith-Tu spoke up. So when your ships respond to distress signals, it's not because you're planning to attack? No, Amy said firmly. We respond because someone needs help. Couldn't live with ourselves if we ignored a call for help. And when you destroyed those pirate ships? Asked Shift 7. We stopped criminals from hurting innocent people, Amy replied. We protected them, but you killed the pirates, Shift 7 pointed out. Only because they were trying to kill innocent traders, Amy explained. We would have preferred to capture them, but they didn't give us that choice. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Everything they thought they knew about humans was being challenged. These beings weren't aggressive conquerors. They were protectors who would risk everything to help strangers. This is even more disturbing, Kethprim said quietly. A species that will fight to protect others is far more dangerous than one that fights for conquest. Amy felt her heart sink. Even when she explained the truth about human nature, the aliens still saw them as a threat. She began to wonder if this cultural exchange was going to make things worse instead of better. The meeting had been going on for hours, and Dr. Amy Foster could see that she was losing the battle to convince the Galactic Council. Despite all her explanations, most of the alien representatives still looked at her with fear and suspicion. She was beginning to think that humans and aliens might never understand each other. When something unexpected happened, young Ambassador Yith-Tu raised her delicate hand and stood up from her seat. Unlike the other aliens in the chamber, she looked more curious than frightened. Dr. Foster, may I ask you a personal question? Of course, Amy replied, grateful for any chance to continue the dialogue. You said humans help others, even when it costs them something. Can you give me a specific example from your own life? Amy thought for a moment, then smiled. When I was a child, I saw another girl being bullied by older children. I was smaller than the bullies, and I knew they might hurt me too. But I couldn't just watch them hurt her. So I stepped in to help. What happened? Yith-Tu asked. Hurt, Amy admitted. But the girl was safe, and that was what mattered to me. Later, other children saw what I had done, and they started standing up to bullies too. Pretty soon, the bullying stopped because we all protected each other. Yith-Tu's large eyes grew wider. You risked harm to yourself to protect a stranger, and it made your entire community safer? Yes, Amy said. That's how humans work. We protect each other, and everyone benefits. Ambassador Keith Prime shook his head. This proves our point. Humans are willing to use violence to solve problems. No, Yith-Tu said firmly, surprising everyone in the chamber. Don't you see? She didn't use violence to solve the problem. She used sacrifice. She was willing to suffer so that someone else wouldn't have to. A murmur ran through the council as the aliens began to consider this new perspective. The real question, Yith-Tu continued, is not whether humans are aggressive. The question is whether they can control their protective instincts. Dr. Foster, what would happen if someone attacked one of your colonies? Amy considered the question carefully. We would defend ourselves, of course, but we would try to find a peaceful solution first. We would only fight if we had no other choice. And after the fighting was over, Yith-Tu asked, we would try to help the attackers if they were injured. We would try to understand why they attacked us, and see if we could solve the underlying problem. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The idea of helping someone who had just attacked, it was completely foreign to most of the species present. Ambassador Shift-7 stood up. This is impossible. No species would help their enemies. But that's exactly what makes them different, Yithtu said. Don't you see? Every other species in the galaxy either avoids conflict entirely or fights until their enemies are destroyed. Humans do something else entirely. They fight only to protect, and then they try to heal. Professor Carl Johnson stepped forward. If I may, I'd like to share something from human history that might help explain this. Kethprim nodded reluctantly. Proceed. 70 years ago, our planet went through a terrible war. Millions of people died. But after the war ended, the winning nations didn't enslave the losing ones. Instead, they helped rebuild them. They turned enemies into friends. Why would they do such a thing? Asked Ambassador Vex-9. Because they understood that lasting peace could only come from healing, not from conquest, Professor Johnson explained. The humans who won that war knew that making enemies into friends was better than making enemies into slaves. Dr. Nancy Phillips added, "This is why humans explore space, not to conquer, but to find friends. We want to meet other species, learn from them, and help them if they need it." Yithtu turned to address the entire council. Fellow representatives, I believe we have been looking at this situation completely wrong. We've been so focused on human capacity for violence that we've missed their capacity for healing. But they are still dangerous, Kethprime insisted. Their physical strength, their quick reflexes, their willingness to fight. Yes, they are dangerous, Yithtu agreed. But they are dangerous to the right things. They're dangerous to pirates, to bullies, to anyone who would hurt innocent people. They are not dangerous to us unless we become a threat to others. Security Chief Tony Martinez had been standing quietly in the background, but now he stepped forward. May I say something? The aliens looked nervous as the large human approached, but Yithtu nodded. Please do. I've been a soldier for 15 years, Tony said. I've trained to fight, to use weapons, to protect people. But do you know what the best part of my job is? The aliens waited silently for his answer. The best part is when I don't have to fight, Tony continued. When I can solve a problem without violence, and I can protect people just by being there, by being strong enough that bad people don't want to start trouble. You prefer not to fight? Asked Shift-7. Every good soldier prefers not to fight, Tony replied. We train for war so that we can preserve peace. We become strong so that we can protect the weak. Ambassador Kethprim looked around the chamber, seeing the changing expressions on the faces of his fellow representatives. Even if what you say is true, how can we be sure? How can we trust a species with such power? It was Yithtu who answered, the same way we trust any species. We watch their actions over time. And so far, every human action we've seen has been protective, not aggressive. They destroyed pirate ships, Vex-9 pointed out. To protect innocent traders, Yithtu replied. They sent massive fleets in response to threats, Kethprime added. To rescue their own people and help strangers, Yithtu countered. Dr. Amy Foster felt hope rising in her chest. Ambassador Yithtu, you understand us. I'm beginning to, Yithtu replied. And I think I understand what the galaxy needs. She turned to address the full council. Fellow representatives, for 1,000 years we have lived in peace because we eliminated conflict from our societies, but we also eliminated our ability to deal with conflict when it arises. Pirates attack our ships, and we can only run. Criminals threaten our colonies, and we can only hide. The chamber was completely silent now, hanging on her every word. Humans offer us something we have lost, Yithtu continued. They offer us protection, not conquest, not domination, but genuine protection from those who would harm us. Ambassador. Kethprim looked thoughtful. You're suggesting we invite them to become our guardians? I'm suggesting we invite them to become our partners, Yithtu corrected. They can protect us from external threats, and we can help them learn about the galaxy and its many civilizations. But what if they turn against us? Vex-9 asked. Amy stepped forward. We won't. It's not in our nature to hurt people we're trying to protect. We would rather die than betray that trust. And that, Yithtu said with something like a smile, is exactly why we can trust them. The vote was closer than Amy had hoped, but in the end, the Galactic Council agreed to invite humanity to join as protectors rather than conquerors. Captain Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral and given command of the new Galactic Protection Fleet, the UES. Horizon became the flagship of a combined force of human and alien vessels working together to keep the space lanes safe. 6 months later, Amy stood on the bridge of the Horizon, watching as human and alien crew members worked side by side. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter was training a young Zenthari engineer, while Communications Officer Danny Walsh helped a Malthorn technician understand human communication protocols. Dr. Admiral Morrison said, joining her at the observation window. "I have the latest report from the Outer Rim. Pirate attacks are down 90% since we started joint patrols." Amy smiled. "And how are the alien crews adapting to working with humans?" "Better than expected," Jake replied. "We're learning that we're not the monsters they thought we were. We're learning that the galaxy is full of good people who just needed someone to stand up for them," Amy added. Through the window, they could see a mixed fleet of human and alien ships heading out on patrol. It was exactly what Amy had hoped for when she first tried to explain human nature to the Galactic Council. They had found their place in the galaxy not as conquerors, but as the protectors they had always been meant to be. The galaxy's most feared species had become its greatest guardians. Everyone was safer because of it.